Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of CRATV. I'm your host, Craig DeLuz, and we're here to bring to you politics, policy, politicians, all from a conservative bent right here in the great state of California. So please take a moment, like and share the program, and follow us on Facebook and on Instagram as well as YouTube. And in all those cases, make sure you hit the notification button. That way you can get the alerts as soon as this program goes live, and you can participate in the live chat as it's going on. Now, before we get started today, I want to make sure to make an announcement for you. For those of you who do not already know, the 2020 annual CRA convention is going to be taking place in Visalia, California. And trust me, folks, you do not want to miss it. Just a couple of tidbits that you'll want to know about this particular event are our two dinner speakers, one for Friday night and one for Saturday night. On Friday night, we're going to have none other than Mr. George Papadopoulos, a former member of the foreign policy panel to President Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign and one of the first targets of the deep state campaign investigation against President Trump. In fact, he also authored a book, Deep State Target: How I Got Caught in the Crosshairs of the Plot to Bring Down President Trump. That's going to be our Friday night speaker. Now, on Saturday night, we're going to have none other than Stephen K. Bannon. That's right. He's the American media executive, political strategist, former investment banker, and former executive chairman of Breitbart News. He's going to be speaking at the event on Saturday night. So trust me, you guys do not want to miss this. If you want to get more details, all you got to do is go to our website, cragop.org. That's cragop.org. It's one of the first items that you'll see right there on the page. You'll see information about the event, what the costs of the event are, whether you want to come to the whole convention or you just want to come to hear these two speakers speak. All that information is right there, as well as how you can purchase tickets. So please make sure that you do that. Anyway, all right, let's get on with today's topic. So primary elections are behind us now. And, by the way, for those of you who want to learn more, there is going to be an article going up that's going to give you more information about how CRA endorsed candidates did. So you're definitely going to want to be looking for that. But one of the other things that was on the ballot, believe it or not, was the Republican nomination for president. And, a lot of people think, well, President Trump is just running all by himself and there's no one else on the ballot. When in fact, at least here in California, there were a number of other individuals, albeit none of us knew who any of them were. But there were a number of individuals who were on the ballot for president. And so we all had a chance to go out and show our support for the president. Now, I have a confession to make, and some of you already know this because I make no secret about this. But in 2016, I did not vote for President Trump. I did not vote for Donald Trump for president. In the primary, I had another GOP candidate that I was supporting who will go nameless. And in the general election, I figured I had my issues. I had my concerns. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But I had my concerns about President Trump and whether or not he would govern as a conservative. And I figured, being in California and the fact that Hillary Clinton, no matter what, was going to win the nomination, I was safe not voting for President Trump. My wife voted for President Trump, voted for him. But I share that with you because what I want to share with you today is how Donald Trump won me over. Because I believe that there are a lot of conservatives out there who were in the exact same boat that I was, who felt the exact same way that I felt. But I think once I had a chance to actually see the president in action and see what he would do and how he governed, I have become not just a person who supports what he does, but a fan of the work that he's done. So that's what I kind of wanted to explore a little bit today. And, this may be for some folks out there, for you to share with people out there. There may be some never Trumpers out there who have an issue and say, I could never. All I can tell you is this. I'm the type of a person that I admit when I'm wrong. I'll be the first to tell you that I don't often believe I'm wrong, but when I am, I make it a point to acknowledge it. Now, let's start with, okay, Craig, what were your issues with President Trump? Well, my issues, quite frankly, were simply this. Not just, kind of his demeanor, which I think all of us can say at the time was not very presidential, but a lot of people gravitated to it because it was refreshing. It was like they felt like he was telling it like it was, like he was telling it like they would say it. And, without getting into a lot of detail, I had issues with some of the ways in which he would say things, and some of the, not so much the positions that he would take, but just the way he communicated those positions. And I didn't feel like those were things that brought us together. But that wasn't even really the big thing because, sometimes he still does that. What got me was that, quite frank, what my concern was that, 18 months before Donald Trump decided to run for president, he wasn't, or run as a Republican for president, he wasn't very Republican. I mean, one only has to look back at Donald Trump's record and realize he's not always been, not only has he not always been a Republican, he hasn't always been conservative. And we can look at a number of the various different positions. I mean, at one point on Meet the Press in 1999, Donald Trump said that he was very pro-choice. He said he hated the concept of abortion. He said he hated it and everything it stands for, but he did believe in choice. Trump also said in his book, The America We Deserve, he said that generally he opposes gun control, but he supported the assault weapons ban, and as well as a longer waiting period for firearms. Once again, not a very Republican position. On Larry King, he had once said that he was very liberal when it comes to health care and believed in universal health care. He's donated to Hillary Clinton in 2002, 2005, 2006, 2007, and even invited her to his wedding in 2005. In fact, had given the Clinton Foundation over $100,000. Now, I don't point all of that out to say that Trump is a liberal. I point all of that out to say this. For people who question me, because people always say, well, how could you not vote for how could you not vote for a conservative? And I said, you mean, how could I not vote for a conservative who, before he decided to run for president, was pro-choice, supported universal health care, supported a gun ban, and longer waiting periods, and a myriad of other liberal issues. He was basically a New York liberal. So I think any conservative who had their questions or their qualms, I believe they were justified. Now, once again, I was in a position where in the state of California, it didn't matter if I voted for him or not. If I had been in a swing state, I probably would have voted for him. I would have voted for him because in the end, as I explained to people who were in a position they really had to make a choice one way or the other, they were either in a state where they needed to make that vote, or they were in a position where they were advising other people and they wanted to be able to give them good advice. And my suggestion to them was this. I said, look, if you have a D and an F, you have two candidates, one's a D and one's an F, you vote for the D. You take the D because the D is still better than the F. It's not a C, it's not an A, it's not a B, but it's still better than an F. And your choices at the time were someone who was espousing conservative principles, but hadn't always espoused those principles, or someone who definitely was not going to support our principles or our values. And that was really kind of the choice that a lot of folks had. So all of that is to say, I was wrong. I'm telling you this right now. I was wrong. I'm owning it right now, right here on CRATV. I'm telling you right now, I was wrong. So for those of you who are losing a fit by everything that I just said, I was wrong. And I'll tell you when it started, when my appreciation of President Trump started. It was on election night. And for those of you who live in the Sacramento area, know that my brother being a very liberal Democrat, we do a lot of political commentary here on local stations here in the local area, in Sacramento area. And we've talked a lot about presidential elections. So, my brother's very liberal. The interesting thing was, so I decided we went over his house and we were with a bunch of his friends during election night. And I remember I got there relatively early and many of the returns had not yet come in, but they were kind of just starting and everyone was jovial and was having a good time. And then the returns started to come in. And I got to sit center stage as some of the most liberal people that my brother knew or that I knew, I got to sit around and watch as they completely and utterly melted down as Hillary lost state after state after state after state. How they watched and I was watching as the folks on the news station, because you can guess we weren't watching the returns on Fox News. We were watching them on like MSNBC or CNN. I don't remember which one it was, but it was like watching them as they drill down into various states and say, well, this county right here has 5 precincts that should go largely for Hillary, so all is not lost yet. And so not only did I get a chance to see them on TV lose their minds, but I also got a chance to sit in a room with a bunch and just, if nothing else, the sheer entertainment factor alone, that alone was enough to make me be beyond grateful that Donald Trump was elected our president. That in and of itself would have been enough. But that wasn't all. You know, I watched as he began his administration, and I watched how things, in particular in the business community and the job community, all of a sudden I noticed how there was a confidence that did not exist during the 8 years prior that started to exist under President Trump. One of the things that I noted was that every quarter, after the first quarter that he took, that President Trump had office, once again, that first quarter, until near the end of January when he actually becomes president, he's still not in control. That's all still President Obama. So once you got past the first quarter of 2017, every quarter after that, growth had been over 3%. Now, this was a mark that President Obama said we would never hit. In fact, he said 2% growth was the new normal. So here it was, a man who said he was going to do something, and he was doing it very, very early in his presidency. He was doing it, and he was already accomplishing it. Matter of fact, even before he was actually meeting with folks and talking with folks, in particular in the business community, trying to reinstill their confidence in doing business in and with the United States. And because he did that, the number of jobs that he was able to create. I mean, let's just run down a number of the economic successes that President Trump had during that time. First of all, he said he would cut taxes, and guess what? He cut taxes. He said he would implement deregulation or remove regulations. He removed regulations. He was responsible for creating over 6 million jobs. 6 million jobs. I mean, that in and of itself is phenomenal. And not only was he successful in creating 6 million jobs, but actually those jobs are paying more. For the first time in a very long time, we're actually seeing wages go up. And not just for the people at the top of the scale. Wages are going up for everyone, even those who in fact are near the bottom. He actually went through and he renegotiated a number of trade deals. You had the USMCA he renegotiated, the Japan trade he wound up renegotiating. Additionally, let's just not even talk about that. Let's talk about his foreign policy successes. He was able to take wars, battles, conflicts, whatever you want to call them, that President Obama was losing miserably. He actually got out of the way and told the generals, you do what you need to do. And so we wound up winning in Iraq. We wound up winning in Afghanistan. When someone went against when we drew a line in the sand, it was a line in the sand. When Syria decided that they were going to go ahead and use chemical weapons, we acted. When Iran decided that they were going to attack our military assets, guess what? They got hit back. We may not be, or our president may not be as liked as President Obama was, but guess what? We as a nation are more respected and more feared. And I'm going to tell you right now, when it comes to my enemies, my political enemies, I'm not interested in being liked by them. I'm interested in making sure that they respect when we say something, we mean it. And that when it comes to if you cross us, you better fear because you are going to pay the price when you cross us. And that is what we now have with President Trump. And let us not forget the most important thing that the president has accomplished. In fact, it's related to the number one reason why many conservatives voted for him, and that's his ability to affect the judiciary. And that he has. In fact, 1 in 4 circuit court judges that are serving right now are appointed or were appointed by President Trump. He's appointed around 200 judges to the federal judiciary. Somewhere around 140 to the circuit courts, over 50 to the appellate court, and 2 Supreme Court justices. But it goes even further. You know, his ability to expose the mainstream media for exactly who they are. I used to watch when I've always made it a point to watch all of the news channels. I watch MSNBC, I watch CNN, I watch Fox News because I want to know what all different perspectives are saying. I read the New York Times as well as I read the Washington Times, and I read the Washington Beacon. I read the entire spectrum because once again, I want to know what all sides are saying. But what President Trump has been able to do is to expose them for exactly who they are. Because instead of reporting the news, what they're doing is they're trying to create the news. And when I say create the news, I mean they've been exposed for putting out fake news, literally creating stories that are not stories. And he's been able to expose them. He's been able to expose the Democratic Party for exactly, once again, who they are. We've had a number of concerns about the intelligence community, and here it is. We're finding now that there are people who are politicizing and weaponizing the intelligence community in order to go after political enemies. Now, this has probably always been going on, but now it's now just been fully exposed, and we're seeing it for what it is. Now, I share all of this with you to say that I recognize that President Trump, if you want to compare the good and the bad, and let's, just if we're going to talk about the bad, there are a number of issues where the president, well, we've had some issues. We'll just put it that way. But then again, I don't know any president with whom we cannot find specific instances where, they fell short here. And that includes even President Ronald Reagan. I know some of y'all are like, oh, you can't say that Reagan did. Reagan had his moments, good and challenging, but I think we can all agree he had many more good moments, many more conservative moments than he did not. And I believe the same can be said of President Trump. And not just that, but in both cases, I think we can honestly say that the nation is better off because they were elected president. So it was for that reason that for the first time this year, I was ecstatic, happy, and proud to cast my vote for the re-election of President Donald Trump. And so all of that is to say, once again, I was wrong. I am happy to say that I was wrong. I am glad that I was wrong. And I believe that the next 4 years can be better even than the first 4 years. In particular, if we're able to give him a Senate and a House and a Senate majority, super majority enough to where he can actually get some of the things done that he wants to get done. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for this episode of CRATV. We very much appreciate you guys tuning in. We appreciate you being a part of the fight and joining the California Republican Assembly, as we are always known. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for this episode of CRATV. We very much appreciate you tuning in. Anyway, that's going to be it for this episode of CRATV. We very much appreciate you tuning in, liking and sharing the program, and telling your friends about the California Republican Assembly. We are the conscience of the Republican Party. You folks take care.